you still there? Is anybody
Yeah,
there?
yep, we're here.
Yep.
Hold on one second.
I lost everybody. I was so afraid.
No, we're here.
Scared.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, perfectly.
Okay, good. Okay. Welcome to Backstage Pass with Meredith Marks, episode 29. I have done so many Yacht Rock episodes, but baby, we are back one more time. This time, we're going to steal away with Robbie Dupree. Hey, welcome to our show, buddy.
Thank you, Meredith. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. It's a little cold up here in Woodstock, but I'm okay.
Yeah, you guys are getting the chill up there. We're in Baltimore and we're feeling it too. It's literally like fall brought winter with it. We didn't really have much of a fall.
Yeah, there was no fall, yes.
Yeah. So tell me, we've got so much to talk about. You and I are Facebook friends. I love your posts. Let's start there. You are absolutely hysterical because you post the greatest videos ever. Do you kind of stumble upon these things or do you search out? Because let's explain, like you'll post videos of 70s disco dancing, but the weirdest things ever. And people love that.
Yeah, from Russia and the Ukraine.
Yes.
Yeah, it's become my life's work to share these videos with people like a missionary.
Well, it's funny, and people like that. And I think in this kind of world, in this day and age, it's good to break up all of the Facebook craziness with the funny.
Well, I mix it up between hate and love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just shared a video of my daughters doing a Halloween challenge, and thank you for that, which is great. They were excited. They're like, he shared it? It was so cool. So they loved that.
Good.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Talk to me a little bit about this whole Yacht Rock phenomenon. It kind of circled back several years ago, and you guys all got on this train together, and you tour with several of your buddies. Tell me what that's like now.
Well, it started about 6 years ago for me when my old buddy and music partner, Brian Ray, who's the guitarist and bass player for Paul McCartney, and he played on all my early records, and still we have a musical relationship. And he was on a cruise, and he called me when he got back to Miami, and he said that there was a great band called Yacht Rock Review from Atlanta, and they were very interested in hearing stories from him about playing on my early records, and I thought that was interesting. And he said, give them a call. They're great. And I did. And they were playing in Manhattan, maybe a month or two later, and I went and joined them at a little tiny club. They were still on a small level at that time. And it was called the Canal Room, and I went and sat in with them, and they were terrific. And that started the relationship, and I started to one by one bring other peers of mine who made records back then in the 70s and 80s. And I introduced them to, Beckett and
Ambrosia.
P. Wilder, Ambrosia. There are lots of people. And then it turned into what it is now, which is a really cool. They've exploded. They sell out everywhere they play.
Yes, they
and
do.
They just played in Atlanta. They sold like 6,000 tickets. So it's a serious thing. And from time to time, they bring guests, and I'm lucky to be one of them. And from time to time, I work with them. I'll be doing Boston Friday, and then in November, Long Island and New York City. And so those are 3 opportunities that I get to play with them. And it's really lovely. They're great guys, and they play great music.
Now, let's set the tone for people that have not seen them. I have seen them. They're incredible. People are wearing the captain's hats. They've got the yacht.
Not in the band, but in the audience.
Right, in the audience. Everybody's dressed up. It's so cool. It's really, everybody kind of gets into the groove of this thing. It's a neat thing to be a part of.
Yeah, I think the thing to really understand, to really give it perspective, is that they're responsible for giving this music a brand new young audience. That's what they did.
Yes.
And they usually, if you would play a show like this, which I would not do, I wouldn't play a kind of a, quote, oldie show. But with them, it's a brand new audience in their 20s. And so it's a treat to, go and do that, have those kind of gigs with them, and to have exposure to all this new audiences that have never seen us on our first time around, So that's really the fun thing. And Jimmy Fallon had a lot to do with the party, because Jimmy, for a while, did Yacht Rock shows on his late night show.
Right.
Christopher Cross, McDonald, myself, Stephen Bishop, Ambrosia. I can't think of any others, but he had a lot to do with it,
He did. And here's the craziest thing about Yacht Rock Review. This is how small of a world it is, Robbie, because you don't know this. I went to an all-girls boarding school here in Maryland. There were only 170 girls, 8th through 12th grade, and they came worldwide. And one of them became one of my dearest friends in high school, and her name is Elliot, and she is married to Nick from Yacht Rock Review. How crazy is that? My grade.
I know Elliot very well, and it's terrific. They're a great couple, and
they are. She's a wonderful person.
Emmy Lou, and
yes,
yeah,
it's just and I did not realize any of this, but we're everybody, you find things out on Facebook, and then it all comes together. So that's when I went to see them, is a year and a half ago. It was just awesome. It was just awesome to see. Do you kind of feel? I mean, I don't really want to use the term second chance, but do you kind of feel like almost it is a second chance at a go round with your
the second
music?
Chance for the old songs.
Yes.
And I don't think most of the people that I mentioned have really gone on and continued to do new music. I have, and I probably have a dozen albums, and of course none of them will ever achieve the kind of success of those early records. But if you have something to say, you want to come out and say it. So I do. So for me, it's a chance to play the old music for a very appreciative young audience. And it is a second chance for the music, to look. There's now a Yacht Rock channel on Sirius XM, and
it's one of my favorites.
Yep.
It's a serious trademark now, and I feel, fortunate and lucky to have that opportunity.
A lot of people are really humbled by being able to be a part of Yacht Rock. I sat down with Peter Cetera and I mentioned it, and he said, "What's Yacht Rock?" And I go, Really? He said, am I a part of it? I said, yes. So some people that are a part of Yacht Rock don't even know, but most people are really into it and are loving it. And like you said,
Well,
second, it's a new
Peter
exposure.
Cetera, Peter Cetera is a different kind of a guy.
Yes.
And I think that the people that are into it, who embrace it, don't take themselves overly serious, and they have a good time with it. And there are a number of artists that should be a part of it who don't participate in it or distance themselves from it. And I think it's because they're hung up on something, that they just can't get loose and do it.
Now, when I interview people, for the most part, when I ask about their earlier influences, I would say probably, and Mike might agree with me on this, 95% say the Beatles. I'm reading here that your earlier influences were Marvin Gaye and Sam Cooke, and I read that and I go, yes.
Yeah, well,
feeling the soul.
It has to do with how you grew up and where you grew up and what things you were turned on to. It's very hard to give influences because you're influenced by everybody when you're coming up, and so those were two major choices. But there are
exposed to
many influences that have affected me, even though my music isn't anything like their music. But they were just, I wasn't ever really a Beatles fan as much as I was a Stones fan. And I like the R&B and the blues vibe more than I like the rock vibe. So it's pretty natural for me that was it. But I also had influences back in the 60s, like Paul Butterfield and his blues band and Taj Mahal and lots of different kinds of music. But you can't write all of that. And then people say, oh, well, you don't sound like them. But that's not the point. The influences have to do with, I remember in the 60s when everybody was wearing hippie clothes, and I always wondered, since I wasn't like that, how would I ever fit in and be able to play music? And then I went to Town Hall and saw the Paul Butterfield Blues Band, and all those guys looked like me. They dressed like me, or I dressed like them. And I realized there was other things besides bell bottoms and tikis.
Not just
and
about the
clothes.
costume.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I know what you mean.
So just in terms of those kind of things, you relate to people and their struggle and their successes, and that's how I look at all of the influences.
In 2012, you released a new album of covers entitled Arc of a Romance. Can you tell me some of the covers that you did on that album?
Yeah, with the exception of one or two of them, they were kind of obscure. There's one called Coronation Street, which I'm not even sure if it was ever on a record, but it was a beautiful song that I was turned on to when I was in Europe. Then there was, let's see, I Only Have Eyes for You, which is a completely different version than the one that we're all familiar with. But that was always a song that was a huge inspiration to me. And I was even afraid to do the song until so much later in my career, because it's such a powerful record, and if you do it the wrong way, it's a cliche. Then there was the Isley Brothers, Living for the Love of You. And there was a group called Prefab Sprout that was an English group, and I loved them. And they had a song called We Let the Stars Go. And that was another one that I thought was amazing. So it wasn't so much like I was doing a songbook or anything. It was that I just didn't think these songs would fit in any other project. So I created a project for the songs.
One of our viewers now, Josh, he wanted me to ask you about the Girls in Cars song for WWE. He wanted me to ask you about that. What he wanted me to ask you, I'm not sure, but he said ask him about that song. So for Josh, anything that you want to tell him about that particular song?
Well, for anybody who's heard it or seen the obnoxious video, it's I got a call. I think it was Rick Derringer was producing a record for the Wrestling Federation, whatever it was, WWE or something. And Cyndi Lauper was involved with the whole rock and wrestling thing. And I was off the label at Elektra, and it was a lean period, and the money was good. And I thought, well, no one's ever going to see this, you know. So Derringer wrote a song called Girls in Cars, and I recorded it. And somehow it continued to hang on because there were so many wrestling fans that had no idea of anything else I did, but they knew about that song. And then the video was, you know, silly, and the whole scene was kind of crazy, you know, the whole wrestling scene and being around pro wrestlers who were giants, who were all jacked up on blow. And it was like the most scary session I ever went in my life.
Do you have any regrets about that, or are you good with having done that?
I have no regrets about anything in the business. You know, it was all. It's like I sang well. It was a funny little song, and if it turns out that a lot of people really enjoyed it and liked it, so I'm not going to judge it. I'm just telling you that for me, it was sort of a crazy offbeat thing, and it started this whole thing that everybody started to send me songs about cars. And because I had Hot Rod Hearts was a hit, and then completely as a non sequitur, Girls in Cars, which was not connected at all, but just doing two songs like that led to like a million songs coming of every kind of car song.
Speaking of Hot Rod Hearts, Mike, let's play that for a few seconds. We're going to talk about Hot Rod Hearts. Here we go. Hot Rod Hearts. Robbie Dupree. I love this song.
That lead was strong. I'm gonna get us thrown off of Facebook here.
All right, fade that out. Oh, I love that song. Tell us about Hot Rod Hearts. Come on.
Well, it's too long of a story to go into the whole thing, but I'll tell you, we, how do I even start? Okay, I had a singles deal with Elektra. I didn't want to take the album deal they offered me, which was really too small. And so the deal was that we would put the single out, and in 90 days, if it wasn't a hit, I was done. And if it was a hit, they would have to pay a lot more money to make an album. And so it was in like 60 days, it was already way up the charts. And they called for the album. And even the president of the record company came down to the studio and said, "We got to get it done. It's got to get done. We're losing sales." So we heard the album up and got it all done. And that night, when we were all finished with the mixing, I went into the studio with the engineer and my two producers, and they looked very grim. And I said, "What's the matter?" And they said, "Well, we don't have another single." And I said, "Well, it's too late for that. Joe Smith was here. He wants it on Monday. There's no time. And I don't even have another song. So just get that idea out of your heads." This went on for at least a couple of hours. And it turned out that the engineer had a friend named Bill LaBounty, who was a songwriter, who had a song that wasn't even quite finished. But Bill ran to the studio and played it for me on piano, and I resisted doing it. I did not want to do it. But I finally made a deal that if we could do it in 24 hours, top to bottom, it'd be okay. But I had to turn the record in on Monday. And so that record got done in 24 hours, recorded, finished, writing it, mixed, and ready. And when it was all done, I finally realized that they were right and I was wrong. And that became the next single and the next big hit. And that lead in the beginning is Brian Ray, the guy I talked about from Paul McCartney's band, who is the one who turned me on to Yacht Rock Review.
That's amazing. I'm going to tell you, most of the songwriting stories that we have heard, most of these top hits and greatest works of art come together unexpectedly, spur of the moment, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Am I right,
Yeah,
Mike?
absolutely.
I mean, we've heard so many of these stories, and it goes, God, like you would think some of these songs took so much longer, but no, it's unbelievable. I love stories like that. So cool.
Yeah, well, like I said, if it was up to me, it would have never gotten done because I was, under pressure to get this record in on a Monday. And they played it for me on a Friday, so we had Saturday to do it, or Sunday, whichever it was. But we had one day to do it. And there wasn't any, we just worked around the clock.
But people love that song.
Yeah, and I love it, but I'm just admitting the fact that I was dead wrong about not wanting to do it. See, it was out of context with everything else that was on that record. And now, of course, when things live together for a long time, they sound perfectly normal. But to me, it stuck out. It was not any of the other songs were about anything, those subjects or anything. And the choice of language in it, and all, it just seemed like really foreign. But I learned a lesson, and it was a good lesson to learn, and I paid attention, and Bill LaBounty and I became songwriting partners for, I don't know, a dozen years after that.
See, things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
They really, truly do. I believe in that. I do. Take us back to 1981. Grammy nomination, Best New Artist. Tell me about being at the Grammys in 1981. Got to hear some stories. I know you've got stories.
Well, there are a couple of things to say. The first thing was it was kind of easy and there wasn't any pressure because I knew that I was not going to win. Because Christopher Cross had like 4 or 5 hit songs and 8 nominations. And, it was clearly not going to happen for me. So it made it a lot easier. In truth, I had been a club musician for years before any of this stuff happened. And I felt a lot out of place at the Grammys themselves. And where I was sitting with the nominees, it was Michael Jackson and Diana Ross and Quincy Jones and, just these mega stars. And I felt like such a tourist, that I was like, what the am I doing here? So
just go by and touch each one of them.
I just kind of sat quietly and I just waited for my category to pass, and I felt better after that. But the fun thing was, all of us, we were very outside of the mainstream. We never, none of the guys that I worked with were part of the LA scene. We were all really outsiders. The studio we worked at was a very small home studio in North Hollywood. And everything that we did sort of came from left field. It wasn't like we didn't work with the backing guys from Toto and all of the usual suspects out there, So I think we all felt pretty much like strangers in that world. And that night we went after the event. I had brought my parents and at the time my wife and my 2 producers and a couple of friends. And there was no place at the party. We went to the Grammy party and it was just jive, a lot of record company people who had no business even being there, And so Peter my drummer and producer said, listen, hold on, I'm going to make a phone call. I'm going to call my cousin. He has a bar in Garfield, New Jersey. And let me call him up. So he called his cousin, and his cousin said, yeah, bring everybody over. We'll have a party right here.
Because the Grammys were in New York that year.
They were, yes,
okay.
They were.
Okay.
Radio City.
Yes.
So we jumped across to Garfield, which is half an hour away from Manhattan. And we walked into a bar full of Italian-American friends of Peter, my drummer, and relatives. And they were cooking lasagna and ravioli, and the drinks were flying, and my parents were in their glory. And it turned out to be really where we belonged. And ever since then, I don't think I ever participated in any kind of music industry thing again. You know, I just never really felt comfortable.
That's the best Grammy party I think I've ever heard in my life. Who doesn't want to go wherever there's lasagna and meatballs?
It went on all night, and you know, it was just this amazing food, and it was wonderful.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I mean, some people say, "Oh, you should have done it. You would have met all these people," but I don't know. I just never fit in that world.
Yeah, it's not for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not. I love when everybody's so humble, and it's good. It's good to stay humble. You seem very humble.
Well, I was just out of place. You know, it's like walking into a room full of fashion models when you're not. You know, it was like these people were all established 20-year artists with discographies a mile long and, you know, fame. And I was like a newcomer. So that's just the way I felt about it. And then I realized that it wasn't for me. So I stayed in LA to work for a couple of years more. And then when that deal was over, I left and came back to New York, where I felt much more comfortable.
Take us back to the days of Steal Away.
Well, the days of Steal Away were, I was dead broke, and I left Woodstock, and I hitched a ride with a bartender who I knew and went to LA to catch up with this band who I'd met in Woodstock and who had moved to California. The name of the band was Kraken, and they were on Warner Brothers, and it included the guys that eventually played on all my records. And I found them and said, I don't really have any money, but I'd like to see if you guys would like to produce and play on a solo project. And I have a few songs that I brought with me, and some more I'm going to write. And they said, yeah, whenever you get it together. So I got a job in a bar restaurant out in Venice, California, and I was a host, and I did pretty well there and made quite a bit of money. And that was the money that we used to finance the recordings of 4 or 5 of the songs that eventually became the album. And nobody bought the record. Well, half a record. Nobody wanted it. Every record company passed. And I was faced with the reality that this was probably it after a long run, that nothing was going to happen. And I'd done what I wanted to do with the people I wanted to do it. And sometimes you got to fold up and go. So I went back to New York, no deal, and got a job loading carpets on a truck in Long Island. And it was hard work, and I was kind of bummed out about it, but that was the way it was. And a few months later, I received a phone call late at night from my drummer's brother, who had played in a social setting, had played a cassette of these songs, and for a man named George Steele, who worked at Elektra. And it affected him in a personal way. And they called me up and said, if you come to California next week, George will give you a record deal.
Wow.
And I thought, unbelievable. First I thought it was like a joke, you know, and then I realized that George Steele was serious, and I flew to California the next week and got the deal. And really the rest was just what I talked about before. We finished the record in a hurry. And the first hit was big. Steal Away was a big, big hit. And, it was unusual to be like from obscurity to like Midnight Special and Dick Clark Show and Solid Gold and all of the TV shows and everything. I was really quite surprised by all of it. So, there's a million little stories, but I mean, that's the big picture on it. And I remember the first time we heard it, the three of us, Rick, Peter, and myself, were together in the apartment in West LA, and somebody called us up and said, "Hurry up, your song is on the radio." And we turned it on and caught the last half. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. I had no idea, that it was snowball.
That first time on the radio, huh?
That was the first time in LA on Alexandria Avenue, in the room where we wrote the song. And all of a sudden it was on the radio. And believe me, I'm not being modest. I'm being honest. That was like, to me, the high point, like hearing it on the radio.
Oh, yeah.
I never imagined that it would be, we'd be talking about it now, and it's 38 years later.
What was that initial reaction? Did you laugh? Did you cry? Did you jump up and down? I mean, were you screaming? I just want to know the feeling that you had hearing that.
I think we were all trying to play it cool, because we realized this was just a small Parallel 3 station in LA, really didn't have any significance, So it was really a personal moment that we would just like looked at each other and said, "Wow, I guess we did something, good work." And that was about it. And then all of a sudden, that was maybe in like April, and then it just exploded everywhere.
Wow.
And no matter where you went, it was on the radio. And now today, I think it just crossed like 5 million airplays in the United States. So that's a long, long journey for the song and for all of us, who, by the way, still perform together.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So you have the guys that you played with in early 80s. You're still playing with those guys.
The main guys, there's a couple of new people, but yeah, Rick Chudikoff, Peter Bonetta, Leslie Smith, Brian Ray, still working with them, still recording with them.
I mean, that's pretty damn special, Robbie.
I know. Well, we felt that we had something very special going into it, that we, really cared about each other a long time ago in Woodstock days. And then the success bonded us, and we knew each other's parents and, watched each other's families grow. And, we just are a family, truthfully, and I don't throw that around lightly, but that's who we became and who we still are, and I think that it's what kept us all interested, because I really wasn't part of that get into the rock sweepstakes and see who you can play with. I was very content with the music that we made together.
I love that. I love that.
Well, you have to catch the show sometime. It's.
Oh, believe me, I'm working on it. I definitely want to see you. I've seen a bunch of other people. I have not seen you or John Ford Coley. I haven't seen Christopher Cross. I hang with Mike McDonald. My brother's Michael McDonald's tour manager, so I'm always with Mike. But and he has people out. I gotta call Mike. I gotta say, let's get Robbie out for one of your shows. We gotta get you with Michael McDonald.
He's playing at the end of this. Well, now maybe even he's at the what's the name of the place in Manhattan? The Carlisle.
Yeah.
He's at the Carlisle for like 10 days or something.
Oh my.
Okay, we'll talk. You and I will talk. We'll try to figure something out.
It's only a little 80-seat lounge. It's where, I don't know, you're young, so you may not know who Bobby Short was, but Bobby Short was the guy who sang Cole Porter music, and he was very, his girlfriend was Gloria Vanderbilt, and it was very high society.
Oh.
That's what the Carlisle was. But as that audience grew older and older, they decided to start bringing in. They brought in Christopher Cross. They brought in who was the David Johansen, like very Deborah Harry.
Oh yeah.
Not doing like production, like
Right.
doing small like piano bass kind of stuff. Very cool thing to do.
I mean, Mike does like, I'm not exaggerating. The man does like 4-hour sound checks sitting at his piano. I mean, he could probably just sit there all day, and he could probably just sell tickets for people to do a rotation of going in and out of that theater watching a sound check, and people would be very happy.
Well, there's certain people that defined the voice of their era, and he defined that voice. Certainly for the 70s and 80s.
Yes, he did.
Mm-hmm.
That was the voice. And before that, it was people like Marvin Gaye. And, when singers were distinctive, when you heard Sam Cooke, you knew it. When you heard Aretha, you knew it. When, everybody had a particular James Taylor.
Frankie Valli.
Yeah, they all had a very identifiable thing. Of course, his is easily one of the most identifiable. And that's changed, as time has gone by. There's more of an interest in sounding the same as everybody else. And I don't think it's a great trend, but that's what's going on.
That's what I literally just said to my twin 12-year-old girls. I'm listening to their stuff, and believe me, when I drive them to and from school, we listen to the Yacht Rock channel, 80s on 8, 70s on 7. We listen to...
She's raising them right.
I am raising them right, right? I mean, I got to. That's how my dad raised me.
Yep.
I mean, I was raised on Manhattan Transfer and Frankie Valli and Chicago. And I mean, I was raised on great music, and I want to expose my kids to that. But when I get talked into, Mom, can you put on our channel? Everything sounds the same. It drives me nuts.
What it is that it's really about the records and the sound and the danceability. There's just a different thing. You must remember that starting in the 60s, perhaps with Bob Dylan, that music had to mean something. Mm-hmm. You didn't just, until the disco era. Are we on regular? We're not on regular radio. We can speak our minds, can't we?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want to judge the music and say it's not good. I just want to say that it's not really about as much as it used to be. And when you think of people like Marvin Gaye and Curtis Mayfield, they laid down some heavy shit, and it was about the environment and the war, and music had meaning, depth, and people conveyed it, even in a context of funk or groove or whatever it was, James Brown, whatever happened. And it's different today. A lot of the things today just happen to be more lightweight than they used to be. There was a period when rap music in the beginning, when it was a very urban Bronx, Brooklyn kind of scene, that it really was more of the social consciousness thing, whether you liked it or you didn't, but it was saying something, But it's sort of fallen into song and dance routines, with people lip syncing and everybody dancing around them and bombs going off. So it's just another thing. The kids don't even care that people don't sing on stage, that they lip sync, because they want to see them dance.
Yeah. It's about it's about the production. I took the kids to a Taylor Swift concert, and I have to say it was incredible because the production was amazing. Sure. But watching my kids' faces, I mean, that just lights up my life. Are you happy that you had the success that you had at the time that you had it? I mean, the 80s, that was the time, I feel. 70s, 80s.
Well, I think it's natural for people of a certain age always to remember the music that was relevant to them at the time. So it's natural that my parents would have said there was nothing like the music of the post-war 40s, Glenn Miller and Buddy Rich and
Oh yeah.
Tommy Dorsey. So I think it's natural for us to identify. That is circling back to the Yacht Rock thing. That's what's so interesting, to think that this huge movement of young people who are digging on Yacht Rock, it will become their music that they'll remember when they're 40 and 50. So it gives another life to the music long beyond how long I'll live. It's just these kids will be adults and they'll be playing it for their kids. They obviously have made a qualitative choice to dig this music as opposed to something else. That's what I think.
Absolutely. I play it for my kids.
And you've been to Yacht Rock shows, yes?
Yes.
You've noticed that every single person knows every single song?
Yes.
That's what's a mind blower. You go out on stage and you look at these 23-year-old people all singing everybody's songs. And I think it's pretty phenomenal. So
you never know what you're going to get. One of my favorite shows, gosh, when was this? Must have been February in Atlantic City. It was Ambrosia with Bill and Tamara Champlin and
Right.
Stephen Bishop. Now, it's no secret. I mean, everybody knows I'm a huge Bill Champlin fan. I mean, how can you not be? He's amazing. Right. But I met Stephen Bishop backstage, and he was a funny thing. He was slightly awkward backstage. He was funny, but I will tell you, I'm sitting in the audience, and I had watched the sound check, right, for all these guys. When Stephen Bishop came on stage, he was absolutely hysterical. The whole crowd was cracking up. He's amazing.
I know. I've done a lot of work with him, and in March we're doing some shows out in the Midwest. No, in the Illinois, Michigan, Ohio area, like double bill show. And he is hysterical, and that's part of his thing. He has stories that are unparalleled because he's been everywhere.
Yeah,
he's done everything, and he can keep people entertained in the dressing room like nobody I ever saw. He's just hilarious.
Yeah, a really funny guy. And you don't expect that when you're just sitting in the audience and you're going to like a Yacht Rock show, and all of a sudden he comes on stage and he's just hysterical. Right.
Well, though that show was really more of an adult-oriented show.
Yeah.
That same thing doesn't work with like 20-somethings.
Correct. I agree.
Yeah. So that works. He's in his element when he gets in front of a good audience of, more mature audience. He kills them because they can relate to the humor that he has. Mm-hmm. And he probably dated every major starlet in New York and Hollywood in the 70s and 80s. Everyone.
Well, I know the ex-girlfriend that he wrote the song about was, she played in Scrooged. Help me out with it. And Superman.
Oh, Margot Kidder?
Yeah, Margot Kidder.
But he had like women from Saturday Night Live, and he was just very handsome guy, beautiful songs, beautiful voice, and a funny guy, and he just was single, and just so he has lots of.
He was single and he chose to mingle.
He mingled.
He mingled a lot, is what you're saying.
Double time.
He mingled the whole time. You're saying that Stephen Bishop was a stud puppy.
I'm saying he was the stud puppy.
The stud. Wow.
Like if you left your girl in the dressing room, she might not be there when you got back.
That's great. Oh, I love that. Goodness.
I think also, Stephen's, why he catches you off guard is his music is quite earnest and tender. And then his humor is so not.
Yeah.
It's really, I don't know, the jokes he tells every night, but I mean, I know quite a few of them. And you have to be on a certain intellectual level to really dig his thing, and he's funny, he's just a really great guy, and it's a big part of his show.
I'm gonna get political, but in a different way than you're expecting. Okay.
Come on.
People have said that people on a platform or with celebrity status should not open their mouths in a political way. Now, I know between you and Burley and Michael McDonald and many members of the Steve Miller Band, a lot of you post and are very open about your feelings on politics. I agree with all of you, by the way, and I have no problem saying that. Mikey's going to shut up right now because he's different. But what do you say? I want to hear your response to people that think that celebrities have no voice or no business having a voice politically. That's what I want to know.
Well, I really can't speak for them. I can tell you just from my own personal experience that most of those people are people that have opposing views, and that's why they don't want to hear it from you, because they have their own. They want the music to just be the music for them. What they fail to understand is that in dire times that we're in, it's very important to speak up, no matter what side you're on, because dialogue is all we have. And if there is no dialogue, then what happened today is what happens next. The frustrations and the anger turn into pipe bombs and, trying to assassinate 2 former presidents in one day. And, we're in a crisis mode. Mm-hmm. And it's not an accident. So people have written to me and said, I won't buy any of your records. I won't come to your shows. And I say, that's fine. I'm fine with that. It doesn't mean that much to me to have you there if you don't understand why I'm speaking out. And so it's okay. Don't buy the record. Yeah. That stuff long ago went away. And I want to be on the right side of history. I don't want to tell people a long time I kept quiet when I should have said something. So I don't have any regrets.
Yes. Thank you. I'm applauding you for that. Because I agree. I think that people are people, no matter if you're a superstar, if you're a musician, if you're in Hollywood, wherever you are, if you're somebody living in a little cottage down by the lake. I think everybody has a voice and should use it. And I think even more so when you have a certain platform and you can just kind of voice your opinion. Because like my dad said, Mikey, opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one. I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I'm not against the people.
I have to edit that.
I'm not against the people who have differing viewpoints. I just don't want to have to be quiet because they want me to be quiet so that I can be like a trained bear and come in and play a song for them and be quiet. I just, I served in the military during Vietnam. I did my thing. I'm not afraid to talk about anything to anybody about politics. And most of the people that have that want to quiet people's voices down, I feel bad for them because they're missing the point of democracy. And yes. That's really not to win a point about who. I'm not trying to convert people. Most of the people who like my posts are on that side of the fence anyway, whether I say something or not. But I think it's important to give them some confidence that if they look up to me in any level or any way, that they feel a little bit stronger. And when you say nothing, there's a saying about it. I won't remember it precisely, but it was similar to this, that first they came for the gypsies and no one said anything. And then they came for the Italians and nobody said anything. And then they came for the Jews and nobody said anything. And then they came for me and there was nobody left to say anything. Oh. See, so that's not exactly what it is, but that's the point.
That's the point.
You've got to talk up.
Yes, you do.
So that means you silenced me.
Oh, I didn't silence you.
Sure you did. You
No.
said Mike's not going to say anything right now.
Because I'm not going to start because I know where you're going to go with it.
Actually, you don't.
Go ahead.
I was going to go the Ted Nugent route.
Oh, no.
That guy runs his mouth way too much on stage.
Okay.
Kiss kicked him off the tour the last time they reunited and took Ted Nugent. They kicked him off the tour. He was talking more than singing.
Okay.
Okay, so if you have some politics to talk about on your tour,
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah.
Just make sure that the music becomes the front and center of the show.
Yeah, when you're on
I've
tour.
been around since dirt, so I know all of that. I'm talking about Facebook now.
Yeah, Facebook.
Yeah.
Facebook.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about, Mikey.
I don't follow Ted Nugent.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to get up on stage and give a speech. That's not what I mean. It's just that Facebook is a platform where this kind of exchange goes on all the time.
Yep.
Yes.
And to be on Facebook and to see some of the dialogue and to not respond, it's okay if you don't want to, but I don't encourage people one way or the other. I'm just saying personally, I get all kinds of mail from people saying, shut up, and, I want to like the music. I don't want to listen to any of this. The answer to that is unfriend me.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Bingo.
I'm cool with that. I'm not mad at anybody.
You can mute each post as it comes through.
Excuse me?
You could mute.
You can mute a post as it comes through. I have a friend that doesn't agree with me, and all his friends pile on. They'll sometimes drag me in. So when I see one of his posts now, if it goes that right, mute.
Just mute.
Because
it's a beautiful thing.
Every afternoon he posts his post of the day, and it's inspiring words.
Yeah.
Like his morning sunrise.
Yeah, things like that. Robbie, I always ask my guests the same question. This is my favorite question to ask. Because this is how we're going to wrap things up with you, okay?
Okay.
Tell me about your favorite goosey moment when you look down and you've got goosebumps on your arms and you just can't believe this is happening to you. What's your goosey moment in your career?
Wow, that's a mouthful. I'm trying to think what it would be. Okay, well, it isn't really in my career. It's just in my life. But my drummer and producer, Peter Bonetta, he produced many, many records, including Smokey Robinson on the last hits that Smokey had. Mm-hmm. One Heartbeat and I forget the other one. Anyway, we went to Vegas to see Smokey play. And we were hanging backstage. I'd never met him before. And then he said to Peter, "Where are you guys staying?" And we said, "Oh, we're gonna get a room. We're just gonna split a room and go back to LA in the morning." And he said, "I won't hear of that. I'm in the Elvis Presley suite at the MGM. I got so many bedrooms, I don't know what to do with them. You guys come and stay with me."
That sounds like a party.
So we went upstairs with him.
Wow.
And hung out, and we went and sat out on the roof. Half of the floor was like this suite, and the other half was like a roof space. And we went out on the roof, and we were looking out over Vegas. And Peter said, "I don't know, Smokey, if you know that Robbie is a singer and a writer." And Smokey turns around, real quiet, looks at me, and he goes, "Why don't we steal away?" So blown away.
Best.
And I couldn't, I don't really tell that story. I can't remember telling anybody that, but that was such an incredible moment just to think that it had some resonance with him, that was maybe the kind of funnest moment,
Yeah, that's a wow.
That's a great goosey. That's a great goosey. Oh, man, Robbie. Okay, to remind people where they can see you in the next month or two.
Okay. With Yacht Rock Review, I'm at the Royale in Boston this coming Friday. I'm at the Paramount in Huntington, Long Island on November 9th.
That's my friend Brian Doyle's place.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm at the Irving Plaza in New York City on November 10th.
Mm-hmm.
And wrapping up with my band the last gig of 2018 is at the Bearsville Theater in Woodstock on December 8th. And we've got new singles that are going to be out online. And I got back all of the original masters to my music from after a long struggle. And they are now all re-released. Steal Away, that album, and Street Corner Heroes, the second album. They were all for the first time, believe it or not, in CD in America.
Wow.
That the label never exploited those records at all. It's a shame. But now they're out. They're online. They're on my website. For information about what I'm doing and what's going on and old music and new music, go to RobbieDupree.com. And that's my deal.
RobbieDupree.com. You heard it here. Robbie, thank you so much for coming on our show. It was so much fun to talk to you about all different kinds of things.
Mike and Meredith, it's a groove to be here with you, and I hope that I get to see you guys on a show sometime soon.
You will. Trust me. I'm coming.
All right. Well, be good. Say your prayers and eat your vitamins, and I'll talk to you later.
All right. Hey, Robbie, don't go anywhere. Hold on.
Okay.
You stop things, Mike. You tell me when you're done.